It's an issue that we fear every single year, crumbling roads, forcing drivers to swerve in and out of traffic to avoid these massive craters. Advocates and experts on road maintenance say it's not just the weather that impacts our roads, but the lack of funding to provide good maintenance on our roads every year.
Potholes are just a kind of a seasonal thing that we can't avoid, really. Just with the type of weather we have, there's a freeze-thaw cycle that is just, we're gonna have a certain amount of potholes. But on a deeper level, the overall maintenance of our streets will sort of determine how bad our potholes get and how many we have, right? And so when our streets are not maintained properly, we get more potholes and we get more severe potholes.
Extreme weather and old roads in Winnipeg do not help the city's ongoing annual pothole problem, but some advocates say there is a constant that continues to drive the issue. And that problem is the city continues to build new streets when it cannot afford to maintain the ones it already has.
There's a lot of very low grade maintenance that needs to be done, just chip sealing and crack sealing, just stuff that is ongoing maintenance that isn't very expensive, but that really increases the life cycle of pavement and makes it less susceptible to water seeping in and then freezing and then expanding and creating those potholes. That's just ongoing maintenance, and the problem is we don't have enough money to maintain all the roads that we have, and so we just don't do it. And so we end up sort of chasing emergencies and then replacing what we can when we can. And people would say, oh, why don't we just spend more money, right? But the reality is that money doesn't exist. It's not the fact that the city doesn't have enough money, it's the fact that we as taxpayers, whether we pay to the province or the feds or the city, there's not enough money to maintain the amount of roadways that we do have. It would take an extra $600 million a year, which is all, pretty much all the property tax that we pay. We'd have to double just to take care of the roads. It's just not something that's feasible.
Durand Wood is a municipal finance and infrastructure issues writer in Winnipeg, writing many blogs about this topic on his channel, Dear Winnipeg. He says the city of Winnipeg just exited a 5-year period where record amounts of money was spent to fix infrastructure, which in turn never really got fixed. And Mayor Scott Gillingham, along with members at City Council, have pledged to extend the Chief Peguis Trail and widen Kenaston Boulevard, with early estimates pinning these projects at over $500 million each.
And our infrastructure deficit went from $6 billion to $8 billion. It got worse. Even though we were spending the most amount of money we've ever spent, it's the amount of money when we calculate what we would need to replace and repair and maintain everything we currently have is just a number that just makes no sense. It's just, we're never gonna get there. And so that's why it's important to just do better city planning so that we can make better use of what we've already built instead of continually expanding and adding to the problem year after year.
In terms of infrastructure and the growth of Winnipeg, Durand Wood says the city is years behind where it should be, decades behind many other cities in North America. He says the development pattern we have been using is an outward expansion, adding more infrastructure, which we don't even have money for.
You build a round of suburbs. When maintenance comes around, you don't have the money to repair it. That's okay, we'll just build another round of suburbs to bring that new income. That can only continue for a certain amount of rounds before the whole Ponzi scheme comes crashing down. That's where we have been over the past couple of decades, just service cuts and neglecting infrastructure. And other cities in North America have started to figure this out already. And so that's why you see cities like Minneapolis, Edmonton, that are, allowing fourplexes as of right, or they're, investing heavily in light rail or in cycling infrastructure, like cities like Calgary. That you don't expect to be like, oh, these are the progressive, urban places in Canada, but they're basically just following the math. They're just looking at the finances of it and being like, oh wow, this is how we got to do this. And so from that perspective, yeah, we are really, really way behind a lot of other cities.
And Durand Wood says it's imperative that Winnipeg does look at other more advanced modern cities and learn from their models, because what we are doing now is not working.
Calgary, for instance, one of the great ideas they had is in building their downtown bicycle network. They didn't do it the way we're doing it. The way we're doing it is we'll redo one street and then we'll do one bike lane here, and then we'll do maybe a couple years later we'll do public engagement. And we'll build another bike lane over there, and nothing is really connecting. Nobody is very happy. Whereas Calgary, they just one time they put everything in a whole network temporarily, and they said we're going to test this out. And over 18 months, they tweaked, they changed things that weren't working, they moved things around, and by the end of 18 months, they had made over 100 changes. But by that point, then everybody was happy, like, yeah, this is working. And then they made that permanent, right? So that's a better approach, is to trial things out in a temporary way, in a quick way, an agile way, so that you can make sure that you get the best results for everybody. Not only people on bikes, but people walking, businesses, people driving, and that's the advantage of the way Calgary did that with their cycling network. So we could learn a lot that way.
Durand Wood says finding more sustainable ways to get around the city, like biking or taking transit, is an option more people should be considering as a way to bettering road infrastructure.
How can we make better use of what we already have? And a lot of road wear is a function of the amount of traffic, the speed of traffic, the weight of traffic, and of course, a bike or 10 bikes or 1,000 bikes, is a lot less weight, a lot less wear and tear on roads than even a handful of cars. And with the electrification of cars, they're just going to get heavier with all those batteries. It's going to create more road wear. So really, the idea is the more we can convert some trips to non-car trips, the better that's going to be for our road maintenance. If we continue down the same path of what we've always done, we're just going to end up abandoning infrastructure because stuff's going to need to be fixed. We won't have the money, and therefore we won't fix it, right? And so we've already seen that with the Arlington Bridge. We're seeing it with pools. We're seeing all kinds of stuff where stuff is ready to be replaced, and we don't have the money, so we just don't. So if we continue down the same path, we're going to see more of that. If we really buckle down and start to really understand where money comes from and what things cost and how we can make better use, then we're going to see more people on bikes year-round. We're going to see more people on buses. We're going to see more infill, more compact development patterns, and we're going to see stuff in better conditions, stuff that we'll be actually able to maintain.
It's confusing because there's a difference between what people would like and what we really can afford, and what's really good for the city, for its physical health, its environmental health, and its social health. So, and it's hard to convince people that we need to be building differently.
Richard Milgram is head of the Department of City of Planning at the University of Manitoba. He says city planning is difficult, especially in Winnipeg, due to the fact that there is a culture that people want certain things, and to turn that ship around is a slow process.
I did some studies a few years ago where we looked at Winnipeg between 1960 and 2000, and in that time, the city grew in size, grew in population by about 34%. But that's very, very slow growth over 40 years. It's less than 1% a year. That's a very slow growth. Some years there was zero growth. At the same time, we doubled our built footprint of the city, which meant more infrastructure. It means more infrastructure per capita. We're building a city that we couldn't afford, and we still can't afford, and we're still catching up from that, but we're still continuing to build because that's sort of the momentum we have, is to keep building that way.
Milgram says there is a frustration level to the way our city operates because there is really no focus on how we should be tackling projects.
The number of $8 billion to repair what we have, and yet we're building we want to widen Kenaston, we want to extend Chief Peguis Trail. We're doing all of these things. We're spending very little money on transit, which is obviously the alternative to driving everywhere. We're spending not enough money on active transportation. I mean, we build new neighborhoods. We don't build sidewalks in them because nobody walks very far because there's nothing to walk to except other houses that look like their houses. So yeah, it's a vicious cycle at this point. Well, it is. I mean, if we're going to spend all of our huge amounts of money widening roads, which is going to actually create more traffic and not less traffic, it's going to actually not solve congestion. So, you know, we're going to see more crumbling roads because there's going to be even less money to maintain what we have because there's going to be more to maintain.
So some of you may be asking where we should be going and what the next steps should be to revitalize and modernize our city. Well, Milgram says it starts with transit.
You know, right now we anticipate that everyone in every household is going to make something like 10 car trips a day. And that's a crazy amount to be traveling. But that's because we're taking our kids to school by car because the kids aren't able to walk to school, or you know the schools are too far away. You have to take the car to run every single errand because nothing is within walking distance. So first of all, we're not creating neighborhoods that you can walk to the amenities you need. And that means more than just parks, because many people can walk to parks, but they can't walk to a grocery store. We're making it very difficult for people to get to work anyway, other than by car. We need more frequent transit to make it more palatable for people to take transit. We'll see what happens with the new transit plan, whether the routes will be better, but even with new routes and a new grid of how transit and the interconnections are going to work, if we don't have more buses and more frequency, people are still not going to take it.
Milgram says cities like Winnipeg should be focusing on the coined term 15-minute neighborhoods, where everything you need will be within walking or biking distance. But with the makeup of our city, it's going to take many years to change that.
Well, I'd like to see it stop moving out and filling in the holes. I mean, downtown is a major opportunity. It's underpopulated. It's a very large area, and it has a very small population for its area. There's lots of opportunity there to use existing infrastructure. We need to use existing infrastructure better, not build new infrastructure.
For 30 years, Walmart's helped Canadians save through a lot. The Elmo craze in '96, your endless wait for dial-up, those wide, shapeless jeans, that hair thing with the teeth. In the 2000s, you were all doing this. So we did this. In 2020, the race for toilet paper was won here. Whatever was happening, we made it happen for less. 30 years later, we still are.
When you live with diabetes, confidence comes from knowing your glucose levels and where they're headed.
So fresh, now you know that I want only the best. You can't stop me now. Nah, 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 nah.
Manage your diabetes with confidence with Dexcom G7. Visit Dexcom.com to try it for free.
When you're performing at your best, it's hard to imagine anything holding you back. But performance-inhibiting deposits restrict your engine's performance, robbing it of its true potential. Don't let anything stand between you and performing at your best. New and improved Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Performance unbound.
What better story is there than one that's unique to you? It could go back 4 generations to a fishing village in Norway. Or feature great characters like Great Aunt Jean. What a legend. Your story could explain how being good at running actually runs in the family. And if you're lucky, you might even find a new living relative. Hi, Layla. Get to know your family story. Order your DNA kit at Ancestry.ca.
Coffee run, anyone?
I'm grabbing lunch. Any requests? Race ya. Tim's has flatbread pizza now.
There's a new Tim's run in town with new flatbread pizza. Served hot out of the oven and freshly prepared in chicken parmesan, pepperoni, simply cheese, and bacon everything. Tim's new flatbread pizza.
Cities like Winnipeg deal with a freeze-thaw cycle over the winter months, leading to cracks and craters in our roads. And this year proved pretty deadly for Winnipeg streets, as the city has already filled more potholes already in 2024 than previous years.
For this year, since January, we've filled around 80,000 potholes, but for that same duration, previous years, historically, we have 30 to 40,000 potholes that we fill.
Jean-Luc Lambert is the support services engineer in street maintenance for the city of Winnipeg. He says the freeze-thaw cycle over the winter led to increased potholes on our streets. Data from Manitoba Public Insurance shows 1,952 pothole-related claims in the first 4 months of 2024. That is already higher than 2019, 2020, and 2021.
We have some roads that are up in age and need to be renewed, and until those are renewed, we're keeping them as safe as we can. So what we're seeing is that with these pavements that are more in age, they're weaker. So when we go through those thaw cycles, we got some cold weather followed by some warm weather. We see that the melting snow goes through the pavement where there's a crack or whatnot, where there's that localized failure, and then it just exacerbates from there once it cools off. So that's why we're seeing more potholes on certain streets than others.
Lambert says the city prepares for pothole patching every year and always looks at other cities on how they tackle their pothole problems.
Yeah, no, we have a good working relationship, especially with other cities out west in the western provinces. We have good lines of communication with them. If ever we're looking at, when we're reviewing our operations, we're often reaching out to them to see any lessons learned from their end or any trials that they're going. But yeah, everybody's faced with the same challenges out throughout Western Canada as we see here in Winnipeg.
The city of Winnipeg has a lot of road maintenance projects this summer, $138 million worth. City Councillor Janice Luke says there is a lot of old infrastructure in the city and not enough funding to fix it all.
The way the funding model is set up for cities is every one tax dollar, if you have one tax dollar, 10 cents comes to a city, 40 cents goes to the province, and 50 cents goes to the federal government. So with that 10 cents, okay, cities fix roads, they open new fire paramedic stations, community centers, we have to fix our sewer treatment plant, we have to upgrade it. We're really challenged with the current funding model.
Cities like Winnipeg have few ways to raise funds other than primarily property taxes. And of course, property taxes alone cannot cover the costs needed for growth.
We go out and we try and do all this work on and spread that dollar as thin as we can. And we can see how thin we're spreading it. We see that our roads are in poor shape. We see that transit, we have a bit of a driver shortage right now, but we'd like to hire more buses and have more buses on the road. We want to revamp all our community centers, but we only have so much money. So people get worked up about the potholes in the roads, and I don't blame them.
In Budget 2024, the Manitoba NDP government has committed to sit down with municipalities and cities to talk about a new model, which is welcoming news for Luke's.
The last thing everyone wants is taxes to be raised, but we just really need to look at how we reallocate it, because cities are responsible for 60% of infrastructure. Municipalities, 60% of the infrastructure. So we're a little economic engine here in Winnipeg for the province of Manitoba. Actually, not a little one. We're the biggest economic engine there is, right? One of the biggest. So it is a challenge.
Winnipeg is receiving funding from the feds and province to build more houses. While Luke says this is great, they are not, however, receiving funding to support the growth needed to expand. And of course, our existing infrastructure is crumbling.
The potholes we're fixing are on older roads. So it's like putting a filling in a rotten tooth. It's not going to last very long, right? It pops out.
Barring any change to the current funding model, Luke says she believes the roads and infrastructure will only get worse.
All the work we're doing now is just to maintain the roads. $138 million to maintain the roads. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And not all the roads are in good condition, so a lot of it's Band-Aids, right? A lot of it's Band-Aids.
Treat your car, truck, or van to a full-service wash at the Chamois Car Wash and Detail Center today. Our industry-leading ultra-soft washing system is gentle on your vehicle and the environment, using only earth-ready soaps and waxes. 15 minutes door-to-door is all it takes to get your vehicle looking its best. This Mother's Day, give Mom something she really wants. Full-service car wash certificates from the Chamois. 3-packs start at just $78 and 5-packs for just $126.
Sometimes you want to say, "You are amazing."
I see you.
You're the best.
I'll miss you. Say it with Merci, the unique collection of fine European chocolate. More than a thank you. Merci.
Why pay full price for quality products? Make Surplus Direct your liquidation destination. Appliances, furniture, clothing, and more for up to 80% off retail prices. New loads arrive daily, so don't miss out. Come on back and say hello to Good Buys.
Don't pay to haul away your old working fridge or freezer. Efficiency Manitoba will pick up, recycle, and pay you $30 for it. Book your pickup at efficiencymb.ca today.
You do a lot in a day, and when it comes to laundry, you know to rely on Purex to get it all done. So you can keep being Supermom. Purex works as hard as you do.
We know you care. But if this is all too real for you and your loved ones, make the call. Because we care too. Home instead. To us, it's personal.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Many Winnipeggers rely on cars to get from point A to point B, traveling vast distances. But advocates for sustainability say Winnipeggers should consider other modes of transportation, like biking, to get around.
From my perspective, and a lot of environmentalists and people that work in this field, it's really about giving people choice. So right now, in my job, I hear from people all the time, whether it's at workplaces, universities, schools, where they want to bus, they want to bike, they want to do different things, but they really have no choice but to drive.
Mel Marginette is promoter of sustainable transportation at Green Action Center. She says Winnipeggers just have a habit of grabbing car keys to travel around.
There are times definitely where you do need to drive, but I don't need to drive all of the time. So sometimes I take the bus, sometimes I walk. I have the privilege of living in a neighborhood where so many things that I need day to day are really within a couple blocks away from me. And for the most part, I ride my bicycle. That's really, we look at it as like enhanced walking. So it's an easy thing that most people can do. It's very cheap, super affordable, and it just gets you so much farther, so much faster.
Like streets in our city, bike lanes and sidewalks are too crumbling every spring, which Marginette says can also deter people from biking.
So it really is about looking at those major routes to major destinations and ensuring, just like we think about cars and how are the cars going to get there, how are people without a car going to get there, and just prioritizing that.
In 2021, Winnipeg City Council approved the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan, which proposed changes and improvements to the service and infrastructure while including a broad vision for the next 25 years. Marginette says the slow growth of that change and the great deal of time it will take to improve it is also deterring people from using transit.
So the way we built the city really is fundamentally unsustainable, and we built it in such a way that we've really created these problems for ourselves. So I mean, we are in this position where we do need to change. I do have some sympathy for current city councilors because they've just inherited generations of doing the wrong thing, but we've got to deal with it, and we've got to deal with it now. So we really have to think about, as well of like fixing the problem, of like how do we stop making these mistakes? So where are we building? A lot of times now we'll build up a whole new neighborhood, and a lot of times what you'll hear is, and in 50 years, we should have enough people that we can run transit there, whereas other countries don't do that.
Marginette says through collected data, there are a lot of people already in Winnipeg who do not want to drive, but don't have a choice not to, which she says needs to change now.
Honestly, we're kind of building our way into working against ourselves. So we already have enough people to meet that 50% driving mode share, but again, we've given them no choice but to drive. So they're sitting there in that traffic jam, interrupting your flow. Maybe you're going somewhere where you must drive, and they would rather not be there, and all we have to do is open up freedom of movement and freedom of choice to them.
Marginette says things will get better, but they will take time. But in the meantime, she's encouraging Winnipeggers to try different modes of transportation from time to time.
Make a list of kind of the places that you regularly go in your neighborhood. A lot of times if we haven't walked or biked for those trips, we think about walking and biking that it has to be on the same route that we're driving on, which can often be a really hostile route. We might not realize that there's a really cozy path that gets there.